welcome to another episode of Soccerheads New England. I'm Dave Rattigan here with Paul Nardizzi, and we're your hosts today. We're joined by two guests in this episode. Later, we got Frank Dell'Apa, I hope I pronounced that right, from the Boston Globe will join us. But first, Paul, we've got a very special guest, Jim Ruberti. Jim, if you're a long-term listener, you know he's our other host. Paul, do you remember Jim?
Jim.
Yo.
It's great to hear from you.
It is great to be back on. Coming from, it's 88 degrees, sunny out. And the one thing I love about Florida is most people are large like me. I really fit in down here, guys.
Jim is that rare person who never works but still goes on vacation. So Jim, where have you been the last couple of weeks?
Well, I'm down here in Tarpon Springs, Clearwater. Went on a Weeki-Walkie River jaunt. It's been absolutely wonderful. When I pull up to an ice cream stand, it looks like a biker bar, but it's all the fat people on those scamp scooters. It's awesome. I've never seen and what's great about the strip malls down here, I went to a strip mall the other day. You could buy a gun, get your nails done, have a massage, and buy a lampshade for your house, all in the same strip mall. It's amazing.
Jim, it's a place known for the elderly. Do they accept you as one of theirs, or do you feel like you have a few more years to go before you can really be ingratiated with the crowd?
Oh, I fit right in, Paul. They know I don't have a long way to live, so they don't expect me to turn gray. So they know I love soft food because I don't have any teeth left. So it's perfect. I mean, I was at happy hour. I went to not happy hour. What is it? Early bird special, 4:00 the other day. Where else can you get $3 beers in this country starting now? You know what I mean? It's
right. But see, they eat the early bird and go to bed. For you, that's just the precursor to dinner. So it's a little different.
Correct. What I do, Paul, is I get two, and I take the second one home with me for later on about 9:30, 10 o'clock when I'm sitting in the lanai. But I would say if you are a soccer player in New England, why on God's name would you play in New England? I mean, the weather down here is beautiful. The fields that I see down here in the Tampa area, the soccer fields, pristine condition. It's just a beautiful place to be. I can understand why a lot of the athletes, good athletes, choose to come down south.
Yeah, you're probably right. I do miss you. My wife said that I woke up the other night in a cold sweat screaming, "Where's Jim?" So that's been my life with Dave. Evidently, it's really starting to get to me.
That's interesting because the other night my wife woke up with the same thing, but saying, "Why, Jim? Why, Jim?" Very simple. I miss you guys. I've been watching the Revolution still play horribly. I did see the FA Cup final, which was expected. That was not an unexpected to me. I don't know about you, Paul.
No, I know. Liverpool could win all four. They're pretty impressive. They could
absolutely win all four. Very impressive. Very impressive. Who do you guys have on today? What star-studded event person do we have coming in on the podcast today?
As I just read, Frank Dell'Apa from the Globe will join us later.
Very good.
Paul will have an unbelievable story from the wide world of soccer news. And,
nice.
And with us also is our engineer, Dale Lawrence, a former boxer who is like a striker with the speed to get to any ball, but not enough skill to head it properly. And as a result, he's brain damaged.
We miss you here, Jimmy. We miss you, Jimmy.
Well, we love you, Dale, even though we know you had a chance to take out Putin. You know, everybody who listens knows. They've written that down. You had the chance.
That's a good point. That was his greatest moment greatest moment in life. Would you say that was your greatest moment in life?
When I look back at it, it could have been my greatest moment in life. It could have been. Yeah.
But nobody would know. Nobody would know what you say. It would be like the guy who went back and killed Hitler. If he went back and killed Hitler, nobody would know. It'd be just like, oh, look at him. He's a baby killer. How'd he get into the hospital with his futuristic clothing? All right. Hey, let me do the plugs, and then we're gonna segue out through the miracle of editing, and we'll go to Frank. We have a new sponsor, Monster Soccer. Do you know about this one, Jim? Founded by Paul Nardizzi, run by Bryce Nardizzi. This camp will train your soccer player to be better using the same techniques Paul Nardizzi used to develop Bryce, who went on to an excellent college and pro career, and his brothers. So if you want to experience the motivational tactic of starvation when you don't score, Paul, you fed other kids, right? You let the other kids eat if they didn't score.
Yeah, go on. I'm just listening. Go ahead.
Monster soccer.
Bryce didn't play pro,
Monster
by the
soccer.
way, but we hope he does. But he has not.
It's
the second.
It's the other one.
Bryant got to the pros.
All right. Sorry, Brian.
It's all right.
Bryce is all right. Fine.
Anyway, I think I starved Bryce too much.
You didn't develop. You needed more protein.
He showed up at tryouts at the pros, and they said, "You look hungry, kid."
Soccerheads New England is sponsored by financial advisor Rick Spencer, 978-857-7573. Rick speaks at seminars for soccer clubs and more. He'll help get your kid into college, athlete or not. Rick's also my financial advisor and helps out Jim. And as a result of that, Jim Ruberti, not only does he live in luxury, in the lap of luxury, but luxury is thinking about getting a bigger lap to accommodate Jim. To have Rick come speak to your group and to check out one of his free seminars, call him at 978-857-7573. And finally, here's a new idea in fundraising. A Soccerheads Comedy Night is better than a stand-up show. It's an event that your community will never forget with soccer-themed humor and giveaways and all kinds of extras. Want to make money and have fun? Email Jim Ruberti at soccerheadsneweengland@gmail.com.
Hey, I did find my doppelganger down here. Does everybody know what a doppelganger is?
I know doppelganger is a twin.
Yes.
It's a twin, basically, and it's a twin, but not from the same mother. And they say when two doppelgangers get in the same orbit, some terrible things can happen to the universe around them.
My doppelganger was I was in the water in this spring-fed river, and I came across a manatee. And we looked very, and we moved at the same speed. The only difference is they eat vegetation. That's the only difference. Other than that, we are twins.
And Jim eats manatees, and there went his twin.
I hear they taste like chicken. But no, it's well, that's great that we have a new sponsor. I love it, Paul. Organization sounds good. We're going to get people signed up and work it out, and then they can hire Rick Spencer.
I know.
Sounds like a perfect transition.
Yep, the money's pouring in. I just bought one of those luggage things that you ride on. I now have one of those.
Hey, when we get the Globe guy on, what does he cover? What's his
Frank? What's he cover?
What is it? All sports? Is it a particular sport?
He covers the New England Revolution. Have you heard of him?
No, that's great. So that's a really good guest to have on. I'd like to hear what he thinks about the keeper situation. And are they going to go get some goal scorers? And what are we going to do about the middle of the field? Are we going to do anything about the middle of the field? Right, Paul?
Yeah, the middle of the field was, how many times was Polster running behind the play the other day? It was crazy.
Oh, my God. He looked like a bluefish chasing a lure. It was embarrassing. But no, I think those are the big questions you guys should ask him. Is there any plans to do anything about the midfield?
All right, we gotta give him a call.
I know you guys got to go ahead. Miss you guys. We'll talk to you next Sunday, too. Keep them in line.
I'm trying, Jim. It's a tough task, but I'm doing my best. Have a nice trip down there. And if you see any kids that look like me, they're probably mine because I lived in Florida, too.
And, Jim, if you see Putin, sit on him, all right?
All right, guys. Have a great show.
All right, see ya. Our guest today, Frank Dell'Apa from the Boston Globe, covers the Revs, covers soccer, and how long have you been covering soccer for the Globe?
Okay, basically from the time of the World Cup, 1994 World Cup, and actually before that. So we kind of got it started, and but that's what kickstarted. It was 94 World Cup. Before that, we were doing it on a regular basis, but there wasn't that much to cover. So we've been covering a lot more regularly for the last whatever that is, right? 28 years.
Did you come to the sport with a background in soccer, or did you did you learn as you went?
Okay, I'm going to really date myself on that one. So what happened was my first job, I ended up covering the NASL, like right out of college. Okay, so that's late 70s. And I was covering other stuff too. But when that was going on, I decided that was what I really wanted to cover was soccer. Okay. And I said, all right, I better start like getting a soccer library going and everything like that. So I kind of said in the future, that's what I'll probably be covering. But in the meantime, I ended up covering the Celtics in the 80s and this, BC football, you name it, a ton of really good stuff. And it was sort of just always waiting for soccer to come back. And again, it kickstarted with World Cup. And that's when I pulled out all that soccer memorabilia, all the stuff, the press guys, they pulled all that stuff out and started using it again. So I always wanted to do it, but it was really never an opportunity.
So you started with the T-Men?
I was actually in Las Vegas at that time. So it's funny. There was a huge connection to a lot of the guys that played for the Minutemen went out there, like Eusebio, for one, guys like that went out to Las Vegas. And there was a connection through an agent who was a Boston-based guy and this and that. So it kind of a long story, but it was Wolfgang Sonnenholz, who was a really good German player, coached the US U20s, this and that. After that, he was another guy. Minutemen went to Las Vegas. And then they actually went in between. I think they went to Toronto and won the Soccer Bowl. So I picked them up. I was like at the start of my career, and those guys were towards the end. But that was where I really started, was Las Vegas.
Huh. Has covering soccer is? I know it's got to be different than covering any other professional sport. Is that? I mean, how is it? I mean, I have some ideas on how it'd be different because of the global nature, because of the transactional nature of the professional player. Somebody goes to another country. Matt Turner leaving in the middle of the season this year to go to another country, to another league. I mean, how is soccer? What are some of the specific differences that you've seen covering them versus covering the Celtics?
That's a good one. Yeah, I mean, I think basketball has become a lot more international hockey too. So there's some more common. But when I was covering in the '80s, there was not that. In the '70s before that, right? Those sports were really just U.S. domestic players, this and that, and then they started opening up. So there's a little bit of. But back in those days, soccer was international, still is, and so it's a simpler game, right? It's so simple, as they say, the simplest game, and it gets really complicated. So when you're writing about it, I'm going to probably interview guys about the U.S. Open Cup, which is going on now. And that's like almost a foreign concept, because with the other leagues, you just play league games and then you play the playoffs, then that's it. And if you win the championship, you're a champion. That's it, No, you're not going to then have to go and play in another, a team from another country. If the Patriots win it, that's it. They're happy. And Celtics, they'd be real happy. So here, the Revolution, Seattle has now won a tournament that's going to put them in the Intercontinental Cup, or whatever they're calling it now. They're going to go to East and play against the best teams in Europe and all around the world. Revolution were actually in that tournament, the Champions Cup, and lost to the team that ended up losing to Seattle in the final. They came pretty close to actually getting a chance to play in this tournament. So that's pretty complicated. So to explain that to readers, luckily I think the younger generation, you don't have to explain it. Everybody gets it. My generation, and just sort of the mainstream people don't really understand that. And so it gets the global implications are just a lot more far-reaching, just by definition, right, than the other sports. But it's kind of fun. That's what keeps it interesting for me. You got a lot of, look at all the players for the Revolution. You got single guys, and this is one of the teams that has more domestic players starting for them probably than any other team in the league. They got tons of international guys out there that you got to appreciate where they're coming from. A guy like Adam Buksa, who's scoring a ton of goals, will probably play in the World Cup for Poland, and so what he's doing now is great. But for him, like, the big deal is if he gets a payday in Europe with another team like Matt Turner did with Arsenal, and then goes to the World Cup, then he's on a big stage. Like now, people kind of know him around here, but he'll be, a global whatever, if this keeps going.
Who else has an international, an intercontinental? When you said Intercontinental Cup, who else has an Intercontinental champion?
Oh, here we go. WWF.
Professional wrestling.
That's right.
Pedro Morales.
Yeah. It's got some sort of appeal that transcends borders, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So Frank, this is Paul. You're actually an important figure in my life. You probably don't realize this, but growing up, I played soccer, and it was considered in my junior high school, you were a pussy. Like, it was a pussy sport.
Wait. You don't mean Frank was?
No,
You mean that as a player?
me.
You were-
Yeah,
okay.
it was sort of
I just-
you sat in your class and kind of didn't mention that you played because you didn't want to deal with the ridicule. But people like you gave it some credibility. Like I would say to myself, okay, well it's in the Globe now, so it's coming up. So there's Ron Borges writing about football, and I always admired the fact that you went in there and said, I'm writing about soccer. And little things like that for me helped just to be able to say, I play soccer. Like, don't you want to come at me? Fine, but it's a major sport. It's obviously the most popular sport in the world. But so I was always grateful for that. You writing soccer, I used to read it all the time, and always enjoyed your articles. And it's funny you just mentioned the Open Cup because I was reading an article the other day, and I agree with this. I don't think teams focus on it enough. Now that you can get into the Champions League by winning the Open Cup, I'm still surprised when I turn on the games and teams have a lot of backups in there and they're not really focused. It's the quickest way to get into CONCACAF, isn't it?
Absolutely. Right. You can win like 4 games and you're in the final and you're on the way to the Middle East and, a lot of money there coming out. And so, it's surprising when that happens. I think sometimes you got to give guys a little bit of a break and move guys in.
Absolutely.
Should. Yeah. But the fact is, MLS teams aren't really built for more than one competition. They have, salary caps, roster limitations, and that really hurts you. So it's hard for those coaches to juggle all that. But that's the fastest way in. Some teams, realize that Seattle's one of them, and they're on the way now. They went for it in the Open Cup, and they went for it in the Champions League, and they go for it in MLS, and they got a really smart group of people that see all that, and the fans actually understand it too, so they get a lot of support, and that's the way to do it. Okay, I got to address what you were saying. I fully recognize that was kind of going on because I was not, I was going against sort of the mainstream too. And I was saying, why are people criticizing soccer? I think it's a pretty good sport. It's coming up and I'm going to write about it. So, but I did face some resistance on that for sure. I had to kind of sell what I was doing every day when I walked in the office. So I felt that, I knew a ton of people that played soccer and, and I said, geez, these guys, they really had to struggle out here too. So I kind of felt a little bit like I'm fighting for you guys here, because every time I get a story in the paper, I think it helps you like just, you'd have to like run a field and go out there and play basic stuff, and I thought I could see where that would kind of help because, they didn't want to, sometimes it was hard to get a playing field with all the sports going on and everything going on, and so I just thought that there was some things that we were doing there at the Globe that needed to. And I don't think it was like, I was kind of an advocacy thing. I just thought that it was fair. It's like there's X amount of people playing the game, and they should, so we should reflect that. Yeah. And also before there was MLS, hey, there wasn't that much stuff going on. So I was writing, once a week maybe. And so that was okay, but then once it got going, I thought we needed to do more, and the Globe editors agreed. So we started doing more, and then it kind of takes on a life of its own because at that point, really, there's only so much I could do, only so much we can do. That you got to have owners, you got the Kraft family or whoever chuck in a ton of money and be really committed to the thing, and then it can work. And I got to give those guys credit because they've stayed with it for 27 plus years, and so that's what makes everybody's job easier.
Well, let's go fast forward to now. And right now, when you go and you meet people and you tell them that you cover soccer for the Globe, what percentage gets excited? What percentage pretends to care just to be polite? And what percentage just totally disregards you from there on?
It depends on what part of the city you're in. If you're in the North End, you're good, Oh,
well, I remember you telling me this. If you go in like anywhere else, you're a soccer expert, and then you go to the North End, and it's how's the response there?
Well, I mean, you're totally accepted, but on the other hand, they don't believe that I know any more about it than they do. But that's
of course not.
That's okay. That's okay because those people follow the game, and I'm not saying just there, but whoever people are that there's a lot of Brazilian community. You go in there, I would get total respect. It's a good calling card or passport or whatever too. I can go in most restaurants because there's a lot of ethnic workers in there or whatever. I'll probably be okay. But other places, there's it doesn't get you kind of get some bug stares or whatever and say, oh, wouldn't you rather cover like the Celtics or something? I said, well, I already did that, so it was good, but no, I wouldn't. I'd rather do this. So I'm not sure everybody understands that, but a lot of people do, Man, look, I covered a lot of other sports. I had a good time doing it, but, I just needed to move on. And I think people that kind of can see there's a bigger world out there, can understand it and appreciate it. And I'll also say Boston's kind of unique in that sense, too, because I find more resistance there than I would in, like, Chicago or even New York, a lot of places where, you don't have that element that's kind of like doesn't get it. And I'm not sure why that is, but Boston seems to have kind of a lot of people that really get soccer or they really don't. It's kind of hardly any in between.
So the national team for the U.S., a lot of national teams develop a consistent style over time. Brazil's more creative, one-on-one. Spain's known for their intricate passing. Do you think the U.S. has an identity, or do you think they should look to build one, or will that happen over time if they start to win more?
Yeah, I think it's happening. It's kind of evolving as we go. I don't think there was any kind of a style except for sort of like 90 minutes of 90 miles an hour.
Yeah,
everybody's moving pretty loony or just going straight ahead and, run until the end and never giving up. And I think that's changing now. And the reason is because players are getting better. The younger kids understand tactics, and they're so much more technical now. And these guys, they can do stuff on the ball that at speed that I just think it's really impressive. So that changed. And also, so what happens then is their game should change. I think it's pretty similar to how they used to play. And there's more high pressing and this and that kind of fits the quote unquote American mentality where you're just giving it your all and trying to stop the other team and turn that into offense. But what's changing, will change it a little bit as far as the evolution is. These kids now are playing. I call them kids because some of them really are young, Pulisic and stuff, 18, 20, 22, are playing at big clubs in Europe. And that's where they're getting their money. These guys are getting paid big, paychecks over their 7 figures in some cases, And so that's where their loyalty is now going to be split a little bit. Of course, they'll go all out for the U.S. team, but they're also going to say, look at, we kind of got to refine our tactics here a little bit. I don't want to be out there getting hurt, playing for the national team when I don't have to. I'm a good enough player where we don't have to just run around and, just beat teams on hustle and that. We can beat them, by playing smarter here and preserving ourselves, pacing ourselves a little bit. And I don't know if I'm explaining that the right way, but they're a lot more sophisticated now. So that's going to change how they play. And we should see that. I think we're seeing that reflected a little bit as with the national team.
I agree with you. Yeah, I think we need a goalie, though, for the World Cup. We got to figure out who's going to be in net.
Well, Matt Turner should be okay.
I hope so. I don't really trust Steffens after watching him in some of the recent FA Cup games.
I think this might lead us to the next thing, which is you covered the Revs last year, you covered the Revs this year. What's with the Revs?
Yeah, well, okay. Well, things that went right for him, I think, it just didn't quite go right for him this year. And some of that, look at that, was self-induced. They shot themselves in the foot by scheduling these games early in the season, which they never used to do in 26 years. Their first 26 years, they said, let's not play early in the season here at home because of the weather. It's not that good, Could be snowing, right? It could be really bad conditions.
Yeah.
Instead, they scheduled like 4 games, right, in March.
Yeah.
It was and they paid for it. And of course, that could be a home field advantage, but it wasn't. And plus, you get no fans at those games either. So that was their own undoing. But at this time last year, I think they had about the same amount of wins as they have now. But the season started later, so the first couple of months here, the Revolution just self-destructed, in a lot of ways, and it just didn't go right. Gustavo Bo's like a $2 or $3 million player, one of their top guys. He's been injured the whole time too, and part of that might have been because they were playing so many games early, and he got some strains or whatever's keeping him out. We don't even know. So so I think that's again self-caused. problems. Besides that, they should be able to come out of this funk a little bit. But last year, look, they had the best record in the history of the league last year. So that's not going to happen again, So that was an exception last year.
This might be me. Maybe for some reason I equate every coach in Foxborough with Bill Belichick. Shari Joseph, a couple of weeks ago, he was on, and he told us that Bruce Arena is a fun guy to hang out with. And at the time, I assumed that Arena probably was holding Shari's family hostage somewhere. But I'm also thinking maybe I got the wrong. Maybe I just maybe I look at Arena and I got a certain impression. What's Arena like to deal with?
Kind of a coach's coach, and a player's coach. And he doesn't put a lot of pressure on people. He wants, he has really high standards. But after, besides that, he lets you, do what you want. He likes to, he gives it a lot during the week. He gets to work really early. I don't think he sleeps that much. He's literally there at 6 a.m. sometimes.
Really?
Maybe a lot of times, he gets there he's the first guy there. He's working the phones to Europe. He's seeing what's going on over there. Whatever else you do between 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock when training starts, he's ready to hit the field. 2 hours of really good, efficient training. And then the game, I think after the game, he unwinds, he relaxes. And I think he's a good guy to be here. And I've, seen him, I've gone out with him, long before he was top just at conventions and all-star games, that sort of thing. And, he's great to be around, and I think he's smart. He knows a lot about the game. He knows a lot about other sports. He's got tons of contacts, and but I think when it's time to relax, and he knows how to take the pressure off, and he's just good to be around. So for a coach, I think you can learn a lot. I mean, he grew his coaching sort of influences are all over the place. A lot of basketball guys. He's known a lot of top football coaches, this and that, hockey guys, and he's got a ton of contacts, and so he's got a ton of stories too.
I just read a book about him. He's a pretty interesting guy. I mean, he started in lacrosse, and he was successful at that. He was a goalie. He's been a great soccer coach, won more titles than any American coach for sure.
He was a lacrosse coach?
Yeah, at Virginia. He did both soccer and
that's hysterical. Belichick must love him.
Well, they should. I don't think they cross paths that much, and that's kind of and part of the reason is because the Revolution have the new training facility, so Bruce doesn't go into the Gillette Stadium, so they don't really cross paths. But if they did, they're pretty close. And here's a good trivia on Bruce. I don't know if you guys read this one, but he's one of the few coaches I know that when he was a player got his nose broken playing at the old Boston Garden. It was box lacrosse, right?
Oh.
But it was for So he was out there with playing for Montreal, Quebecois, who was the team at the time. They were managed by John Ferguson, actually the old Fergie.
Because they
Canadians.
They really leaned on that connection, that hockey. I love box lacrosse. That was such a great game. And that's funny. I didn't realize that he played. He played box lacrosse. So
he was actually a professional lacrosse player. That was his first. He was a professional soccer player at that time too. Those were some rough days, right? Some rugged days in both sports.
You had to be so tough to play box lacrosse because they, it's for one thing, like indoor soccer, it's tight quarters. You've got to have good stick skills. You've got to be really quick, maybe more quick than fast. But they also were definitely, those were the days of the Big Bad Bruins, and they were definitely trying to make that connection between the violence in hockey and the violence in box lacrosse.
Hockey's violent? Really? I didn't know that.
Well, it's not as violent as it used to be back in the old days when you were just a kid.
Yeah, it was insane. It was insane in those days, really, to tell you the truth, right? If you watch what was going on then, if there was YouTube now, I would put that stuff out there and you can't believe it. As Arena pointed out, there was wooden sticks, this and that. He said he got nailed at the Garden, and And the guy stitched him up with no anesthesia, in the locker room. Now, I've been in those locker rooms and they were pretty bad. And he said, yeah, they were bad. He says, I was really scared going in there with no light, and rats. Or he said rats. He said I didn't see any, but I thought they were there.
Oh, there were definitely rats in the garden. Whether or not they were in the dressing rooms, I'm not sure, but they were everywhere else. So, and he almost played for the Boston Bolts.
He almost went for the Bolts. Let's see, the Bryan family that was running that team. Peter Bryan was really good. Wanted him. They wanted him. The other thing that was really tough for American players. Only a few of them in the league. They're all Canadian guys mostly, and they made it tough on the Americans. But they weren't American players here, and they were trying to get Bruce. And he actually brought him in to play for their club team here. He said they'd fly him in from Ithaca when he was up at Cornell. They'd pay for the ticket, get him in here, and gave him some money. He said not everybody got paid. He got paid, and the club leagues that they had, I guess at that time, were pretty big. They say the sponsors, Brian, whoever else did it, and so he actually played for a Boston team in the 70s.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Frank, I want to ask you about your predictive abilities, okay? I'll contrast it with Dave's comedy career. Dave and I do stand-up in New England.
Right.
That's so when Dale and I, my engineer, first saw Dave do comedy, like we said, why is he wasting his time? And then now that he's out doing all these shows, Dale and I realized we were right. When you first started writing, you must have predicted where soccer would be in 2022. Is it where you thought it would be? Is it a little ahead of where you thought it would be? Or is it sort of stuck in Dave land where you're like, it's never really going to make it?
No, I think it's sort of like I thought it would be.
Really?
I guess. I just thought that I think MLS was a lot bigger than I thought it would be. But I thought I thought it would get to this stage, and I thought at that point they would put in some sort of promotion relegation or something to try to, manage it. But I haven't seen that happen. I didn't know that franchise values would be this high, but I didn't think any franchise values would be as high as they are. So I didn't really know. I just thought it would get good. I didn't know when. So I thought it would definitely be in my lifetime. U.S., in the World Cup, I thought they'd always be in the World Cup, but they didn't make it last time. But I never thought that the U.S. would be a contender for the World Cup, so that could still be a ways off. But no, I think when I first started covering it, I said, this is going to be big. It's going to be great. I'm going to really have a good time covering it. I just didn't know when that was going to happen. So I don't know if I predicted when or anything. I'd say Bruce Arena was probably better at that than I was, because he had the choice between lacrosse and soccer. Yep. He said, soccer's going to be big. I'm going to coach soccer. So that's what he did.
Well, two things that tell me it's not where it should be. And I think so. The other day on EEI, this guy was saying that in the 2000s, that four teams, the Bruins, Celtics, Red Sox, Patriots, have made the Final Four 32 times or some amazing number. But I was listening to it saying, well, the Revs don't even get mentioned, which is embarrassing, especially because that station has Revs games. And then if you go on ESPN, this baffles me because I am an MLS junkie, okay? So if you go on ESPN on their app and you want to watch soccer, on the right is all the listings of stuff you can watch. You can scroll down and you'll see NCAA softball. You'll see English Premier League, which is a big league. You'll see La Liga, which ESPN carries. You'll see the Dutch League. To get MLS, you have to go to the magnifying glass, type in MLS, and then scroll over. And this is a league that the ESPN network covers. That is just embarrassing. So to me, it's still stuck in this fifth place, and it shouldn't be. It should be one of the major sports.
Yeah, I think it needs to be reflected fairly. But I think the only solution I can see is, here's the MLS philosophy: is just keep it going, right? Mm-hmm. And it's Lamar Hunt basically always said this back in the NASL days: don't throw a lot of money at it because at some point it's just going to grow. It's just going to be there. All the young people are playing this and that. Everybody's going to and just hang in there and just keep it, and it'll happen. But I think there's been times when it needs to take a kind of a quantum leap, yes. And it's done that a couple of times, like U.S. doing really well in the World Cup or whatever, but now, I think Lamar Hunt's right that, geez, it's been a while. So I've asked people that knew him really well, what would he do now? Would he keep saying the same thing, 50 years later? Yeah. I don't know. And they thought, well, he would change with the times and maybe he would go a little bigger. Now, the one thing I think they could do is bring in some top-notch players. Because they have the money now, and like the Revolution's a really good example. They've got some really good players. These guys are really good. I think they're really worth watching. A lot of teams have guys like that, but they're not really high-profile guys. They're in the world, they're not really well known. A guy like Carles Gil from the Revolution is great to watch. I mean, this guy's a highlight show from the first minute on. He's unbelievable. But Spain, there's every team has a couple guys like that. Yep. So I think you need to bring in a couple more guys like that for every team, and ones that people have heard of. Now you got to pay money for them. But the other thing that teams around the world have realized, if you start paying money for players, you get that money back, either just the investment, and the MLS philosophy has always been, don't pay a lot of money for these players, because they, you don't want to spend that much because the revenue coming in isn't that good. I think they're at a crossroads now, or have been for a little while, where you got to say, hey, let's go for it now. People are going to come out, but we need to get a TV contract here. And nobody's watching these games on TV. And I think that's one of the reasons why you're not seeing, you're seeing the small print or whatever, or they're just ignoring it. Game's not a presence on TV. And the reason it's not, I think, is because you don't have names that people know. It's not really attractive. On TV, you're going up against all the other sports in this country, and you're going against the Premier League and La Liga and Serie A and the Bundesliga. You have to have a product that comes close to that. I think in stadium, people are great. Attendances are good, everybody, all that. But to get a TV presence, in this country, you've got to up your game, and that's a tough one for MLS. I think that they've got to chuck a bunch of money into that and bring over the top striker from Poland, who would be like Robert Lewandowski for Bayern Munich, instead of Adam Buksa, who's really good for the Revolution. This guy, if Lewandowski was here, people would start going out to Gillette Stadium, and it would be on the news. And I'm telling you but that's what you need to do. Now, that's going to cost you a ton of money. So let's see if that ever happens.
I nominate you for commissioner. I'd like to hear
it. well, here's the other thing. And isn't the history of pro soccer in the U.S. that when they bring in a player who's well-known, it's a player that's at the end of the line? And once a player can't play anymore, then they come to the MLS, or then they come to the U.S., Is that still? I mean, am I correct that that's historically the trend, and is it still the trend now? And yeah.
Some of it is. Yeah, that's partially true. Yeah, and then I think the MLS is, again, but I guess I can't put it in any way. They're just like cost consciousness. Look, in soccer, you just got to go for it. You got to pay those guys when they're 27, and it's going to cost you a ton of money. But there's a global market. That's what these guys are worth, and you'll get your return on investment. You should get that if you get the right guy. You have to pay him, but that's what it costs. If you wait till later,
Frank, if I'm a well-known player and I'm really good, and I go to I'm playing in the English Premier League, and I'm a really good player, why would I want to come to the MLS?
Right, because the salaries in the Premiership are well into seven figures. Yeah, you're going to take probably a pay cut. Toronto's getting a guy named Lorenzo Insigne from Italy, though, they're paying him a ton of money. And that's the kind of thing you need to do.
They're the worst team in the league, too, which is kind of funny. Does he know this as he's coming in?
I think they're paying him enough money, it doesn't matter. They did the same thing with Sebastian Jovinko, who became one of the top two, probably all-time players in league history. Yeah. Gave him a bunch of money, and he came over, and they won the championship, remember. So they gave some money to Josie Altidore, who's now with the Revolution, and Michael Bradley, too, and some other guys. And so they got the return on the investment, and they won it in 2018, I think, right? And they were in the finals 2 other years. That's what you got to do. So, you see, I don't think Jovinko knew anything about it then, but they gave him a ton, and now they're kind of repeating that, formula. Maybe it'll work again.
Yeah.
Let me talk about another development, at least here in Boston, that we've had. Were the Celtics, were they successful with acquiring Chelsea FC in the Premier League? Okay, so but they were bitter. John Henry owns Liverpool, and Kraft obviously owns the Revolution, and obviously there seems to be a trend of leagues, successful teams getting into other sports, buying other teams, whether it's a racing team or a soccer team or maybe a hockey team. Is that going to change in any way? If Pagliuca is successful down the road in buying buying a soccer club, Henry owning Liverpool, is that going to change anything for the Revolution on this end?
Yeah, no, I think it's almost two different breeds of owner. Jimmy Pilato was another Celtics owner that went to Roma. Stuck a bunch of money into that one too. And a guy like John Barrelson, you might not know, has Millwall, a guy from Wellesley, really good. He's done well in the league championship, not Premier, but, he's done well there. But those guys aren't really, neither one of those guys, nobody was interested in John Henry either. Say the Glazers in Florida, they wanted, they wanted Serie A. They wanted the top teams. Those guys don't want to come in a league that has salary caps and roster limitations. They want to go and play with the big boys, and that's what they're used to. It's high stakes. There's promotion relegation. There's high, downsides to it and risk, but that's what they're going to do. So I'm not sure where the two meet. Remember, the Crafts had two chances to buy into Liverpool, and they declined both times. It was a risk, and they just didn't want to take it. And saying that, they probably could have made a go with it, as Henry did. But they've done really well with the two teams they have. So yeah, I think it would have stretched them a little thin.
It is. I think that's our final question, and it has to do with something else that happened in the world of soccer. You did the story on this, a story not too long ago in the U.S. women's soccer reaching a settlement for equitable pay. You remember that, right?
Yes.
Okay. My two co-hosts, we disagree. My co-hosts and I disagree on this, all right? But I think when the teams are well matched, women's soccer, I think it's an exciting game to watch. My co-hosts think that the players should stay in the kitchen and take their slippers off so they can be barefoot. What are your thoughts on women's soccer at a pro level?
Yeah, okay. The only thing I can do is get myself in trouble if I say.
Yeah, I did not say that, by the way, Frank. But okay, we can rewind the tape if we have to.
Okay, yeah. No, you can't be, it's PC and this and that. Well, look, I think. Okay. The first thing I'm going to say is that the teams, they've had really good teams in Boston, like three versions of the Boston Breakers. They never really made it. I know some of the guys that invested in it, and their hearts were in the right place. I think they did a lot of the right moves. They did everything, but it's a tough one to make money on. So I think purist soccer, I think, yeah, I agree. It's pretty good to watch sometimes. But the fact is, I don't think it has the appeal to make it at a much higher level. Saying that, I don't think that's really a bad thing. I think I think you should have teams in every city, and then they should be able to find where they are, whether that's getting 3,000 or 8,000 or 10,000 or whatever, 20,000 a game, whatever you can get, some TV money, and just kind of keep it going. I think that's where we are, but. I don't see why that shouldn't work. But the reality is, people aren't going to pay a lot of money. You've got MLS, plus you've got Premier. People watching these games on TV. The Champions League, you've got a ton of competition. So to find something in between there where people are going to pay the right amount of money, and you're going to get TV money and keep these teams going, it's a tough call. So I think what should be and what really is are two different things. But I'd like to see it. I wrote a story also a couple of years ago when the Women's World Cup was going on. They did a chart of the teams that had the club teams that had the most players in the Women's World Cup. There was PSG, Manchester City, and they third or fourth on the list. This was my own list, right, that I made, was the Boston Breakers, was a team that didn't even exist anymore, had folded 2 or 3 years earlier, and they had 11 or 12 players in the World Cup. So you had a team here that was really good, and they just it was tough to make it go financially. So how that's going to play out, I'd like to see it work, and again, like whatever, find the right level. But it should be there. It is there in a lot of places, but it's hard to make it go at a higher level than it is.
Right. So I just have the feeling that someday somebody's going to hit it at the right time. And I mean, you look at what we've got now, and it's like everything's so segmented that I think that hockey and basketball and baseball certainly soon probably are going to go the way that boxing has gone and the UFC has gone and the way soccer is right now, which is it's segmented. And you've got, I'm a soccer fan, I watch soccer. I'm a hockey fan, I watch hockey. I'm a football fan and I watch football. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I think I'm thinking the same might be true for women's sports somewhere down the road. And I think if the two sports that are most likely to jump out first, basketball and soccer, I like soccer.
There's a ton of things that I don't understand that well that are sort of developing. Streaming rights, all sorts of broadcast rights are going off in different directions. There's this sort of interactive streaming or whatever. I'm not even sure what the terminology is anymore, right? Where, there must be a ton of revenue possibly in that, and that's where it could change. Yeah, I agree with you.
Frank, thanks for being our guest. Do you want to hang around? We have a feature that we do every week that Paul does it. Paul does some research, and he finds a story from the wide world of soccer news. It's a kind of research that other people don't do. And so this is our story from the wide world of soccer. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, you've been asking him if he wants to stay on. Maybe he's I don't want to talk to this idiot.
Good point. By the way, you're in New Orleans?
Yeah. I got family down here, so we're taking a break.
Nice. Well, yeah. You who wants to be hanging around in New Orleans with your family when you can be talking to us?
I'm all good, man. Yeah.
Thank you.
Before I get to that, I wanted to make one women's stat, because down the bottom of the scroll the other day, it was yesterday, Barcelona completed a perfect season in the women's La Liga. Okay, I'm going to ask Dale over here. Dale, would you care to guess what the goal differential was for this team for the season?
In comparison to the other teams?
In other words, if you win every game 2-0, at the end of the year, you're up plus 60.
So I bet it was plus 24.
Plus 149.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That sounds like one of my boxing matches where I got hit 124 times and didn't hit the guy
Women's soccer
once.
has a ways to go to get some parity going.
Yeah, it's a little bit like
I was impressed, and my son says, "Hold on, Dad." And he comes back. He says, "Dad, look at the goal differential. I don't know what that league is doing." So
it's just like girls softball in high school and the Catholic not the Catholic Conference, the Catholic Central League and high school sports. You have the great teams at the top, and the rest of the league hasn't caught up. Anyway, so
today's story is actually interesting because it comes right from my comedy act.
Right from your comedy act.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
So I do a joke about how teams don't really take advantage of the rule book. For example, if you look in the rule book for soccer, okay, you're not going to see the word automobile anywhere in the rule book, right? So if you get out there at the opening kick and you put the ball in the backseat of a car and drive it into the net, the ref can't say there's nothing in there to say that that's not allowed. They will then change the rules, but it is 1-0. Okay. Hockey, you won't see the word explosives in the rule book. So when their best player goes in the penalty box, I would throw some Molotov cocktails in there, and you'll get arrested after the game, but for the remainder of that game, they're without him. Yeah. Okay. So
sounds like good TV too.
Yeah. So I've always said this, and so a team in a lower league of men's soccer, hack soccer like I play, out in Minnesota, took advantage of the non-rule. And you know how in football you jump over the guy to block the kick?
Yeah.
Well, they were jumping on their tallest guy and getting headers. The guy was like up higher than anyone else
really
could get. And they scored 3 goals. And it was 3-3 late in this game, and they decided, let's triple team the guy that they're jumping off, which is stupid because then they just used someone else and jumped off him and scored the winning goal. So kudos to that team, Dave, for taking advantage of the rules that aren't in the rule book.
Why didn't Bruce Arena think of that?
I don't know. The refs could use this, I think, now.
I think you should send that. I think you should send a clip to Arena.
All right.
All right. Frank, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it was great to talk to you, Frank. Really great to meet you.
Excellent. Yeah, good talking to you guys. Excellent. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. So that's Frank Dell'Apa from the Boston Globe. That's a great story. That's a great story about the header.
I'm trying to think of some of the other ones I do in my act.
How high would you have to be to catch that ball?
I think he crouched down a little, so then you run up to him, and from his shoulders you get hoisted, and the ball's played in. The kicker's obviously very accurate.
You know what I see about that?
Smash it into the net.
You know what I see about that would be really difficult?
What?
I think if I was on a team, I would play the role of the catapult of the pommel horse,
right?
And people would use cleats on my back, which I do it for the good of the team. But I would hate to see that become a trend. Although I'm too old to play soccer, so I think we're fine.
I'm picturing Jim in net when those balls are going in.
Oh yeah, anytime a ball goes in the net, I picture Jim in that.
I did too.
All right, so that's it for this episode of Soccerheads New England. We'll be back next week. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Monster Soccer, financial advisor Rick Spencer. Call him at 978-857-7573. And soon you too will live like me. And I've recently bought myself a diamond-encrusted solid gold nose ring. And I plan to wear it here every week.
Who wrote that, Brenda?
No, I wrote that one myself.
Okay.
Don't forget, for fundraising, the Soccerheads Comedy Night, for your team, league, club, or whatever, the Soccerheads will make your fundraiser more than a show. We'll make it an experience. For Paul Nardizzi and Dave Rattigan, guest Frank Dell'Apa, engineer Dale Lawrence, and our very, very special guest, Jim Ruberti. This has been Soccerheads New England. Please like us. Please share us.
And I just want to say hello to our listener, Ella.
Yeah, thanks.
Listens every week.
Thank you to our loyal listener. Someday we'll have two, but we'll never forget you.